The day I turned 18, the weight of my family's legacy became impossible to ignore. I remember standing in the grand hall of our estate, the walls lined with centuries-old portraits of stern-faced ancestors who seemed to watch my every move. My father's voice was cold as he told me it was time to step into my role, not as a choice, but as a duty. That moment shattered the illusion that I had any freedom to carve my own path. Growing up, I had always admired the stories of our family's achievements. Tales of power, influence, and respect were woven into my childhood like fairy tales. But as I grew older, those stories revealed their darker undercurrents, secrets hidden behind closed doors, sacrifices made in silence, and the suffocating demand that I uphold an image I barely recognized as my own. My mother tried to soften the blow, her voice trembling as she recounted how each generation had faced its own trials. Yet, her eyes betrayed a resigned sadness, as if she herself had been crushed beneath the very same legacy I was now expected to bear. It was clear our family's history was more burden than blessing, but that truth was never spoken aloud. The first family meeting after my birthday was surreal. Dozens of relatives, all impeccably dressed, their faces a mix of expectation and judgment, gathered to formally introduce me as the heir apparent. Their polite smiles felt like masks hiding a silent demand: conform, succeed, or be cast aside. The pressure was immediate and suffocating. I tried to voice my doubts privately to my father, asking if there could be room for my dreams alongside the family's ambitions. His response was blunt and chilling: there was no room. The legacy was not a suggestion or a possibility. It was a mandate etched into every decision I would ever make. I realized then that rebellion was not an option, only submission. At school, I became a different person. The carefree girl who once loved art and music was replaced by someone meticulously curated to fit the family's image. I excelled in subjects that would prepare me for business and politics, sidelining passions that didn't align with the legacy's demands. Each forced smile and rehearsed answer felt like another brick in a wall closing around me. Yet beneath the facade, a storm brewed. I resented the family dinners where conversations revolved around power plays and alliances. I resented the endless expectations that left no space for mistakes or vulnerability. Most of all, I resented the silence that followed whenever I tried to speak honestly about how lost I felt. One stormy evening, I found myself alone in the old library, surrounded by dusty books and flickering candlelight. I stumbled upon a hidden journal belonging to my great-grandmother, a woman I had heard little about. Her words were raw and honest, a stark contrast to the polished image our family projected. She had struggled just like me, caught between duty and desire. Reading her journal felt like a lifeline. She wrote about secret dreams, forbidden loves, and a fierce yearning for freedom she never allowed herself to claim. For the first time, I realized that beneath the rigid legacy were real people with fears and hopes, not just statues frozen in time. It was both comforting and heartbreaking. That night, a fire ignited inside me, a desperate need to break free, to find a way to honor my family without losing myself. But the path forward was unclear, and every step toward independence seemed to deepen the chasm between me and those who expected conformity. The turning point came unexpectedly during a family gala, a lavish event where alliances were sealed and reputations polished. I overheard a whispered conversation between two relatives discussing a scandal that could ruin everything. The knowledge of hidden betrayals made the legacy feel even more like a prison built on fragile lies. I confronted my father that night, desperate for the truth. His guarded expression cracked for a moment, revealing a man burdened by the same legacy, trapped by choices made long before I was born. Our confrontation was tense, a collision of generations unable to fully understand each other's pain. In the weeks that followed, I withdrew further into myself. I started keeping my own secret journal, a place where I could pour out fears and frustrations without judgment. Writing became my sanctuary, the only space where my voice mattered beyond the rigid expectations of my family. Despite the turmoil, I pushed forward with the family's plans. Meetings, appearances, and endless networking consumed my days. Each smile felt more like a mask, each handshake a performance. The legacy demanded perfection, but inside I was unraveling, desperate to scream, but afraid of the consequences. One afternoon, during a rare moment alone in the garden, I met an old family friend who had once been a mentor to my ancestors. His gentle words and genuine interest in me sparked a flicker of hope. He reminded me that legacy isn't just about blind obedience, but about the values we choose to carry forward. That conversation stayed with me, planting a seed of rebellion disguised as hope. I began to question not just what was expected of me, but why. What parts of this legacy were truly mine, and which were chains I had accepted without question. The struggle to define myself amidst the family's shadow intensified. Each attempt to assert independence was met with resistance, cold stares, whispered warnings, and subtle manipulations designed to keep me in line. I realized that breaking free wouldn't just be a personal battle, but a war against deeply entrenched power. In those moments, loneliness was my closest companion. Few understood the pressure I faced, fewer still the guilt that came with wanting something different. Friends outside the family saw only the privilege, never the cost hidden beneath the surface. Despite everything, I found strength in small acts of defiance, a secret art class, a late-night walk away from the estate, a whispered conversation with a trusted friend. These moments were fragile but vital, reminders that I was still myself beneath the legacy's weight. Then came the night that changed everything. A sudden family crisis erupted, threatening to unravel decades of carefully maintained reputation. I was thrust into the spotlight, expected to navigate the chaos with poise and decisiveness. It was a trial by fire that exposed both my vulnerabilities and unexpected strengths. As I faced the storm, I realized that legacy is not just a burden but a complex inheritance, a mixture of pain and pride, obligation and opportunity. The choice before me wasn't simply to accept or reject, but to transform it in a way that honored my truth without betraying my roots. The days that followed were a whirlwind of decisions, alliances, and revelations. I discovered allies hidden among relatives I had once seen as adversaries, and uncovered truths that challenged everything I thought I knew about my family. It became clear that the legacy was far from monolithic. It was fractured and alive like me. Amid this chaos, I started to speak more openly, sharing my doubts and dreams with those willing to listen. It was terrifying, but also liberating. For the first time, I felt like I was shaping the narrative rather than being shaped by it. The path ahead remained uncertain, filled with challenges and heartbreaks yet to come. But in that uncertainty, I found a strange kind of hope, a chance to rewrite the story not just for myself, but for those who would follow after me. Even now, as I write this, the legacy continues to weigh on me, a complex blend of burden and blessing. I know the road won't be easy and that many battles lie ahead. But I'm no longer the girl who felt trapped by a name. I'm becoming a woman determined to carry it on her own terms. Every day brings new struggles, moments when the past threatens to pull me under, and moments when the future seems impossibly bright. This story isn't over. It's only just beginning, and I'm still finding my voice amid the echoes of those who came before me. Sometimes, late at night, I stand at the window of my room and look out over the estate. The shadows seem less like prison bars and more like reminders that legacy is complicated, that pain and strength coexist, and that the burden I bear might one day become the foundation for something new. I don't have all the answers. I don't know if I'll ever fully escape the expectations or if I want to. But I do know one thing: this legacy, for all its weight, is part of who I am, and learning to carry it without losing myself is the greatest challenge and perhaps the greatest triumph I face. Some days the legacy feels like a shadow stretching endlessly behind me, dark and unyielding. Other days, it's a fire burning bright, lighting the way forward. I'm learning that maybe it's both, and that's okay, because life is messy, and so is family. In the end, I think the real burden isn't the legacy itself, but the silence that surrounds it, the unspoken rules, the hidden pain, the sacrifices no one talks about. Breaking that silence might be the first step to truly freeing myself and perhaps others too. So here I am, still tangled in the threads of my family's past, still wrestling with what it means to belong and to break away. But I'm no longer afraid to tell my story, even if it's messy and unfinished. Because maybe, just maybe, sharing it is the start of changing the legacy for the better. And honestly, some days I wonder who I'd be if I'd been born somewhere else, to different parents with no history to carry. But then I remind myself, this legacy is mine, whether I like it or not. It's a part of my story, and I'm determined to write the next chapter on my terms. There are nights when the silence is deafening, the house feels too big, and the weight of expectation almost unbearable. But then I remember the faces in those portraits, flawed, human, struggling just like me. And somehow, that connection gives me strength to keep moving forward. The family gatherings, once dreaded, now feel like arenas where I'm learning to hold my ground. Each conversation is a test of patience and resolve, but with every small victory, I feel a little more myself. It's exhausting, but necessary. I've started to seek out stories from relatives who quietly resisted in their own ways. Their whispered acts of defiance, hidden beneath the family's public image, inspire me. I'm beginning to understand that legacy isn't just about carrying on, it's about evolving too. One of the hardest parts is facing those who see my questioning as betrayal. Their disappointment stings, but I've learned that their fear often masks their own struggles. It's a complicated dance of love, duty, and misunderstanding that I'm still learning to navigate. Despite the challenges, I've found unexpected allies, cousins, distant relatives, even old family friends, who encourage me to be authentic. Their support feels like a secret rebellion against the suffocating norms that have ruled us for generations. Sometimes I catch myself dreaming of a different life, one where I'm free to explore my passions without judgment. But then reality snaps back, and I have to balance those dreams with the responsibilities I've inherited. It's a delicate act, and I'm still learning how to walk the line. The more I dig into the family history, the more I realize how many stories have been buried or erased. I feel a growing responsibility to uncover those forgotten voices and bring them to light, even if it means challenging the carefully crafted family narrative. At times, I feel like I'm living two lives, the one expected of me and the one I secretly crave. Keeping these worlds separate is exhausting, but I fear what might happen if they collide. Yet, I also know that living divided isn't sustainable. One evening, as the sun set behind the estate, I made a silent vow. No matter how tangled the legacy, no matter the obstacles, I would find a way to claim my identity without erasing the past. It's a promise that feels both daunting and necessary. I still have moments of doubt, when the burden feels too heavy and the future too uncertain. But those moments are becoming less frequent, replaced by a quiet determination that maybe, just maybe, I can redefine what my family's name means. The legacy isn't just a story of power and prestige. It's a story of resilience, sacrifice, and the messy, beautiful struggle to belong. And I'm beginning to see that carrying it isn't just a burden, it's also an opportunity to shape something new. Every day I wrestle with the paradox of legacy, how it binds me and how it frees me. I'm not sure where this journey will end, but I know one thing: I'm no longer willing to be a silent heir. I want to be a voice, a force, a change. Sometimes I catch my reflection in the old mirrors lining the estate's halls. The face staring back is both familiar and foreign, a blend of past and future, expectation and rebellion. It's a reminder that identity is never fixed, but always evolving. My family's legacy is like a river, sometimes calm, sometimes turbulent, always flowing. I'm learning to navigate its currents, steering where I can, letting go where I must. It's a journey I never chose, but one I'm determined to own. The nights are often the hardest. When the world is quiet, the weight of history feels heaviest. But I also find clarity in those moments, a space where I can listen to my own heartbeat and remember why I fight to be more than a name. I've started to document my story, hoping that by sharing it, I can break the cycle of silence. Maybe others like me, caught between legacy and self, will find strength in knowing they're not alone in this struggle. There are days when the legacy feels like a cage, and days when it feels like armor. The difference lies in how I choose to wear it, with fear or with courage, with submission or with defiance. I'm learning to choose courage more often than not. In the end, I realize that legacy is more than the sum of its parts. It's not just what we inherit, but what we do with it, the stories we tell, the changes we make, and the truths we dare to face. And I'm ready to face mine, no matter where it leads. I'm sharing this here because I don't have all the answers, but I do have a story that's still unfolding. A story about family, identity, and the messy, painful, beautiful process of becoming who you're meant to be, even when the past tries to hold you back. So if you're reading this and feeling trapped by expectations or legacy, know you're not alone. The path is hard and uncertain, but it's yours to walk. And sometimes, just knowing that can make all the difference. I don't know what the future holds, and I'm scared more than I can say. But I also feel a spark of hope, a flicker of something that might grow into light. And for now, that's enough to keep me moving forward.